me.
Oh, you've got a dog?
I do. After your section, I thought I can't not have him in. So
Oh, look, I can see now.
14 and still here.
Oh, bless.
He's so cute. Bless him. He's on his last legs, sadly, but he's determined to see it out.
Oh, bless. Now, listen, we're here to talk about Ruthless Women,
Yeah.
which is your book. But so we're now talking to Melanie Blake, the author, about your book. But can we talk about Melanie Blake as well?
Of course you can.
The
Ask me anything
person,
you want.
Melanie Blake, the agent, the all-consuming showbiz person? Because your life has been as fascinating as most novels, hasn't it?
Well, I think a lot of people have said that if we didn't have the receipts and the evidence of all the amazing people that I've represented over the years, standing up and saying, yes, she did this, she did that, I don't think anyone would believe it because my backstory is so bizarre. I mean, don't know how long we've got, so I'll try and tell it quickly. But my dad was in a very extreme religious cult. So when I was a little girl, we were banned from television, banned from listening to music. He would destroy any toys that we had in the house. I think I was the only 7-year-old with Cindy dolls that had hip replacements because he would literally rip their legs off, throw them in the bin because he had an obsession that anything that wasn't in the Bible was a false idol. Obviously, that is not normal behavior. But when you're young and you don't really know what to do, you just sort of get on with it. So I would sneak around to like neighbors' houses, and my grandparents were not like that, and watch television. And this was the 80s, by the way. And so there were huge, amazing programs on like Dynasty, all the soap operas, which were in the 80s full of very strong older women. Now, not older to now because they were in their 40s and 50s then, but I was there obviously then very young. And I would see those women and I would think they don't look like they would live the sort of lives that my mum lived, because my mum was a very unhappy woman in a marriage that she hated. And a seed was sort of planted in me that I could possibly escape the food banks, the free school dinners, the horrible house. I mean, we didn't even have any door handles on in our house. There was no carpets. I mean, it was a hovel. And live this glamorous, successful life. And somehow...
Well, let's jump forward because then you did. You saved up some money, 1,500 quid from working your own jobs, and came to London, which is something I didn't have 1,500, but I made the same journey, which I think
I know your career, yeah.
A lot of northern people did. Let's give it a go. Let's try London. And
I arrived on my 17th birthday in London. I had briefly been homeless, made myself homeless. I've always said my dad did not throw me out, but I couldn't live under that rule anymore. And I lived in a squat briefly. It was an abandoned house. We didn't break into it. I don't condone squatting. And one night I came back and it was all boarded up and we had to sleep outside for the night. And the next day, this is how long ago it is. This is how much the world has changed. The council gave me a flat within 24 hours. Imagine that in this day and age. And I moved into this little tower block in Salford. And as soon as I was in there, I suddenly thought, if I stay, I'm never, ever, ever going to do this. So 3 months later, I grabbed my little bits and bobs. I remember I had a 12-inch TV, which I carried on the train to Euston, arrived in Euston, got a room in a shared house, and just set about trying to break into entertainment. I had no idea how I would do it. I was clueless. I didn't have any relatives. There was no Uncle Tarquin to give me a favour and get me a TV job. No education. I failed at school because I was dyslexic. I just applied to everything, and all I could get was a job handing out flyers. But those flyers would lead to a very lucky break.
And you became eventually, this isn't what we're here to talk about, so we will just gloss over it and then we'll talk about Ruthless Women. You became one of the most, I guess you'd have to say, amongst a certain group of people, one of the most important women in show business, basically.
Yeah, certainly in the genre that I was. So I'll tell that story really quickly. I was handing out flyers. I did it for about 2 years. I couldn't get a job anywhere. And the company that also looked after the handing out flyers rang me up one day when I was handing out flyers at Euston Station and a female celebrity walked past me at Euston. And that day I was handing out drinks, and she knocked the drink out of my hand and it went all over me. I looked at her for an apology, and she went, "Get a real job." And my spirit was broken. I thought, sod this, I'm going back to Manchester, I give up. I walked behind the concourse at Euston. And as I was walking back, I got a phone call from the agency, and they said, "Have you ever been a camera assistant?" And I said, yes. I had no idea what it was, but I said, yes. They went, "Do you know where Elstree Studios is?" And I went, yes. I had no idea where it was. They said, "Can you get there tomorrow?" I said, yes. The next day I turned up at Elstree Studios and was shown to the studio. And if we go back in time to my dad and his fanatical religion, banning us from watching television, he banned me from my favourite show, Top of the Pops. And I looked up and there was a sign saying Top of the Pops. And that was my entry into show business. And I was like, listen, God, you're looking after me, not him.
Oh, bless. Right, listen, one day, when this is all over, Melanie, you're going to come in here and we're going to sit properly and go through all this. But for now, because otherwise the publishers will be down on me like a ton of bricks, we've got to talk. Well, no, we've got to. I want to talk about Ruth of Swimming. Go on, you've got the floor. Tell us about it.
Oh, well, okay. So Ruth of Swimming, which is currently a Sunday Times bestseller, which for someone like me is just unbelievable. I had a book out a couple of years ago, which was an Amazon #1 bestseller. But as you know, it's very snobby, the literary world. Unless you're in the Sunday Times, they don't count you. And Ruthless Women is now out in Australia, New Zealand, America. It's all over the world. And it tells the story of a soap opera, which has basically been on air for 39 years.
Falcon Bay.
That's right, Falcon Bay. And it's set in a beautiful, gorgeous location just off Jersey in a fictitious area called St. Augustine's Cove. It's a very gentle show, and it basically has been run for years by men who treat all the women on the show terribly, misogynistic, sexist, ageist, and the owners of the network die and they sell the network, and it's sold to an American woman who comes in, and all the women on the island go, "Fantastic, we're going to have a woman, she's going to have our back." Her name is Madeleine Kane, and she is the ultimate bitch from hell. One of the best reviews for this book is that it's the Devil Wears Prada of the soap world, because she arrives and they think she's going to help them, and she is definitely not a woman's woman. So to wrap the story up without spoiling it, she unleashes a battle of the sexes where all these women that have been friends for nearly 40 years have to fight to survive, because if you lose your job on the show, you lose your home on the island. So it brings out the worst in everybody. And it also has another plot where they decide to bring in a former soap star, where we meet all these has-been actresses that are no longer famous and are all desperate for this major show role, which will see them famous all over the world again. So the tagline for the book, which is actually on the front cover just here, etched here, is "Ambition can be deadly." And in this book, it certainly is.
You know, one of the things I love about this is in your head, and I don't know, I don't know what I would never, ever be so impertinent as to try and ask you to discuss film rights with me, but it's a film. Because you
it's a TV series. It's a TV series at the moment. Apple, Netflix, Amazon, everybody's all over it, because it's 6 female leads. They're all over 50, which is unheard of. Mm-hmm. And the leading lady in the show is 70. And they all have fantastic sex lives on their terms. Another review for this book is that it's the anti-50 Shades of Grey, because the sexual side of the book is from a female perspective. If a man tried to get out a pair of handcuffs and a blindfold in here, they would trick him into wearing them, tie him up, and then go off with his mate.
By the way, I honestly, I hate to do this. I hate to mansplain to you. But you said she's 70. You forgot to add, of course, she's 70, but looks 50.
Because, of course, so I ended up, so when we move on from Top of the Pops, I was a music manager first, then I ended up becoming known the Queen of Soaps, because I represented more soap stars than any other woman in my genre. Stephanie Beacham, Claire King, Shell Collins, Gaynor Faye, Beverly Callard. I could go on and on and on. And I worked with all the big stars. And what I realized is that they all have access to all these amazing special doctors and laboratories and treatment centers to keep them ageless. And there's a really interesting aspect of this book about the fact that HRT plays a big part, because these women are older and they have incredibly strong sex drives, as you will discover when you read this book, because it is quite naughty. And that's because on the NHS, they only give women estrogen. But if you see a private doctor, they give celebrity women estrogen and testosterone. And as we know, as you will know, testosterone is what drives men. And of course, men have to work very hard at being good. And so women who are just on estrogen only have emotional sex, whereas the testosterone gives them that sort of carefree element. So we discuss that in the books. Obviously it's fiction, but that's actually true, and I found that really fascinating. One of the newspapers nicknamed it Dr. Feelgood.
It's already is it already, you haven't signed a deal yet, so it's not cast yet?
At the moment we're concentrating on the translation rights, so it's just been sold to Hungary, Romania, which means it's going to come out in Transylvania, and I'm so pale, I can't wait to go there and pretend to be a vampire. And right now it's out in Australia, so I'm doing Australian hours at the same time as UK hours, and then on the 1st of April, this is not an April Fool's joke, it is released in America and in Canada. So we're waiting to see where it hits. It's been a huge hit here, and no one expected it to do what it did with the Sunday Times. So we're playing hard to get, which is something that these women don't always do.
Okay, slightly, obviously you can choose to answer or not answer any of the questions that you're asked. How many people in show business from the world of soaps will read this thing and think, oh, I knew she'd get me in it somewhere?
Oh, you should see my DMs, Bob. I mean, the threats, the vileness. And do you know what I say? Bring it on. So in this book, you will meet a lot of leading ladies, the good, the bad, and the downright vile. And that is a good representation of my life of 20 years of representing actresses. Now, everybody that I name checked earlier is absolutely adorable, but I have looked after some stone cold bitches. And I have used that experience to craft some of the most monstrous characters you will ever read. They are certainly readable, but they are not people you would want to hang out with in real life. And sadly, I did have to do that for many years. What I will say is this: if you're looking to work out who on television is nice and who is not, look for the woman holding up the banner that says, be kind, be good. Share kindness. She is normally an absolute witch behind the scenes. The women that are nice do not feel the need to say that because they are nice. Anyone that preaches it is generally rotten to the core.
It's a really weird business, isn't it?
Yeah. My DMs are full of people going, is that such and such person? I'm going back going, yes, it absolutely.
And I mean, also, but the world you inhabited as well, let's be honest, that's got some shark operators in that world as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, God, don't forget. I mean, I know I don't look it, but I've been around a long time. And I have also discovered quite a few of those numbers from those clients to those special places. And I've met some rotters. I mean, you know, and like in this book, it's full of all the men. There was only one good man. Now, what does that tell you? I mean, it tells you that like the ratio is pretty bad. And in my job as an agent, I must have done 30 celebrity weddings. Only 2 were decent men. The rest are what we call celebrity sniffers, where they go, celebrity, oh, I really like you. I was once at an award ceremony. I'll tell you this, don't know how long we've got. It's a great story. It's a short one, right? And I won't name names, but they are out there. There was this guy, right? And he is a soap star. He's still in soaps now. And I was stood, it was a big awards do, and there was like 3 of us together. Like 3 female actresses, together, and then me. And he walked up and he was like, Joey, how you doing? To the first one. And she was like, whatever. And then the next one, he was like, how you doing? And she was like, whatever. And then he came to me and he went, how you doing? And they looked at me and then he realized I wasn't famous and he went, oh no, forget about that. and then the fourth one that he got to, and she's really famous, he went, how you doing? How you doing? And she went, how you doing? And they got married. And of course, within a year, it was wrapped. And the divorce was quicker than the marriage. But literally, they are just like that. And it's so funny because I watched him go like along the line. She was number 4.
It is a horrible world, and I know that you will have absolutely nailed it in Ruthless Women. I remember someone talking about someone once, and I said, "Well, I don't know. I've always met them. I think they're all right. I think they're quite nice." And he said, "Yeah, that's because you're not important enough to be nasty to."
Oh yeah, that's pretty accurate, I would say. I mean, the thing is, it's that thing like I hate, like, if you're gonna be vile, just be vile. I like, and make that your brand and be Cruella de Vil. But don't pretend to be Snow White and really be trying to give us poisoned apples, because that's what I can't bear. Shove your apple poisoned tartan and get lost. It's like, or show us who you really are. And in this book and the reviews, and anyone that wants to look at this book, forget what I've said, forget what you've said, just go and look at the reviews. The reviews are from the readers so great because they're truly fascinated. They go, I loved reading this, but my God, I would never want to work in it. And we did a launch for it digitally because of COVID. And we couldn't do it in real life. And one of the main themes is the way that men in show business treat women. And Beverly Collard was on the launch, and she talked about how when she was in her 30s in the green room at Coronation Street, that a male executive walked up and watched her watching a love scene being filmed, not anything gratuitous because it's Coronation Street, with an older woman. She was about 60, and he looked at the older woman and he went, condemned meat.
Oh, Melanie, bless your heart. Come, we shall meet again soon.